Hi, everybody. It's Pastor Jesse, and it's time for tonight's Connect Point. We've been looking through Deeper, which is a devotion by an author named Susan Eckhoff. We've been working through the YouVersion app and going to that devotion. So if you want to follow along, if you're watching these after they're being recorded and released on the night, and you want to go back, you can look in that devotion. It's called Deeper by Susan Eckhoff, and look at to how we can get closer into the things of God. And that's what we've been looking at for the last week. Tonight's the last night, talking about spiritual intimacy and looking for it. When we look for spiritual intimacy, when we seek for it, Eckhoff suggests two things, and I agree with her, that when we are wanting spiritual intimacy, it's so that we know Him and that we are known by Him, as well as we love Him and we are loved by Him. So we know Him and we're known by Him, we love Him, and we receive love from Him as well. And tonight, being the last one, I was looking through the devotion, and I couldn't believe that this one was falling on this one tonight. And I almost skipped it. I almost did something else, but I thought, no, I want to hold true to what we set out to do, so I decided to go ahead and do it. Tonight is about retreat, which I think is kind of ironic because at this moment, it feels pretty much impossible for us to actually take a retreat and to retreat. But I don't think it's a good idea to skip it, because it kind of will then show, it brings us back to what we are, the pattern and the lifestyle that we used to lead. We know we're probably not going to go back to that lifestyle very quickly. And as we do get back into that lifestyle, into getting back into our regular routine, we really have to focus on what do we want to get back to? What is it that we want to get back to? Not just, oh, I can't wait for things to get back to normal. Hear me and hear me well. Life is not going to return to normal as we know it. Things are going to change. And in fact, some of the things we need to purpose to change. And one of them is this right here, retreat. I looked in the book of Luke, chapter 5, 16. Chapter 5, verse 16 talks about Jesus, and Jesus did this often. And I think we need to kind of look at this, and it's just a quick little verse. So he himself often withdrew into the wilderness and prayed. Jesus retreated quite often from the confines of the time, from the crowd, from people pressing in on him, wanting things from him, probably getting advice from him and whatever else. The crowds would constantly push. So Jesus had to take time, it says, to withdraw and get away from that. So here's the lesson, I think, that is important to learn from that. Retreating is Christ-like. Getting away, withdrawing from the regular routine and going and doing a retreat is Christ-like. Therefore, if we don't do it, I think we answer our own question. Is it okay for me to not retreat? Is it okay for me to not withdraw and to be with Him? Well, if we're trying to emulate Him, we're trying to live our lives as to what He did, doing what He did, then we have to retreat. Now, retreats are different from vacations. We'll talk about that in a moment. But I've heard pastors, I've heard sermons, pastors that I respect, that are able to go on these retreats. In fact, there's a couple local pastors I've even talked to recently that they get to go on a retreat and they get to be sent out and they go up into some cabin. And some of them have gone up to the cabins in the mountains of Colorado or even New York and just gotten away to have these spiritual retreats. And they do that to help them so they don't suffer from burnout and getting away from it all and whatever else. Now, when I hear pastors say that, I say to myself, well, what other profession gets to do that? You don't really get to hear very often about medical profession getting away. You don't really get to hear lawyers aren't saying, oh, I just needed to go and have this lawyer retreat away from everything. But it seems to me like pastors kind of do this, and they say it's a spiritual retreat. And so part of me, though, I'm like, that's not going to work. It doesn't work for me, even though I'm a pastor. Part of that is because I'm jealous of it. And part of the reason I think people don't do it is it's our culture. If we're not working, if we're not doing something, if we're not sticking our nose to the grindstone and really focusing on it, then we're not being good with what God has given us. However, I don't see that in the picture of Christ. I don't see him always pushing. I see him at different times pulling away and getting off during the day even to pray. To be Christ-like, to be deeper, to have more of a desire of him and to be more like him, we need to retreat. We need to get away. And not only do we need, we must. We must do it. Otherwise, we're going to see burnout. And we know what burnout is. I've seen it. I've been in the ministry a long, long time. I've been around people that are ministering and serving. And burnout is big. In fact, it's so big that we've disguised it into other terms. We've called it depression. We've called it feeling sick. We've called it different medical things. We've not all of that. Not all depression and medical conditions are burnout, but some of them are. And we must recognize that we need to draw away and get spiritually closer to the Lord. When is the last time that you actually, even before this whole quarantine business and lockdown, all of that, when was the last time that you yourself drew away from life just to go off and pray? Even if it was during a day, I'm not even talking like a 24-hour retreat. I'm just saying during the day, during your busy schedule, when you're at work, on your lunchtime, that you just drew away to get close to him. It doesn't happen very often, and I think it needs to happen even more. So when we get out of this, when we're back to a routine, a more regular routine than we're in right now, we need to say to ourselves, I'm going to build into my lifestyle times where I get away and I pray. Now, it's different, like I said, than just a vacation. Vacations are very important. We need to get away and we need to rest, and we need to rest before the Lord. He talks about that. That's what Sabbath is, and pulling away from that. But even more than just that, a retreat or a spiritual retreat is even different. It's resting before the Lord, but it's also seeking him. I don't know about you, but when I go on a vacation, I'm not setting that time aside to really press into the things of God. I want to go see a museum, or I want to go see some landmark or some site or something. So don't schedule our vacations as times that we need to press into the things of God. We have to now schedule times where we do that ourselves, that we press in for what he has for us. Times where we can reflect and have extended prayer and goal setting and setting our next steps, seeking for those, journaling, praying, quietly listening. We need to have times where we're doing that, especially if you're the parents of children and in a family. You need to find time where you're doing it, if not by yourself, maybe even as a couple. So maybe some of our vacations, as we have them, can become times when we get back into a routine, that we're actually scheduling times for ourselves to become more spiritually close to God, getting deeper with him, whether alone or with others, but giving ourselves faithfully to what the Lord has, seeking spiritual intimacy and allowing this spiritual hunger to rise within us, and set aside different media distractions so that you can listen to his will and listen well to what he has. Let this be an opportunity to experience the Lord in fresh new ways. I know it's difficult. I know it's something that is contrary to who we are as human beings and working and doing all those things. But it's important, nevertheless, that we focus on him, that we seek spiritual intimacy so that we can go deeper into the things that he has and deeper in our relationship with him. And that's very hard to do. I would say it's nearly impossible to do when we don't pull away. So we must take a lesson here. We must take a lesson from Jesus himself, who pulled away, who went off into the wilderness by himself to have a spiritual retreat. And we have to take that lesson and do that ourselves. So I would ask all those who are watching this, that when we get back into a new routine, when we get back into a routine that is a regular routine for us, we build inside of that times of, yes, vacations, those are important, but also times of spiritual retreat, that we will pull away and focus on him. And through the course of a day, we would say, you know what? I need to pray at this time. I know I've got a break every time at work at this time. Let's pull away more often in prayer as well. Retreating, pulling away, and focusing on him. That's the end of this series. I hope that it was impactful to you. It really helped me in a lot of different areas in my own life and my own spiritual walk, moving forward into what God has for me in my spiritual intimacy. Be blessed, be well, and we will talk to you again soon.